What is a community fish? A community fish is a fish that's known for having a peaceful temperament and generally gets along with any other fish in the tank. Community fish are not only good for beginner fish keepers, but they're also some pretty amazing fish. Here are what we believe are the top 10 community fish.
Platies and mollies are very similar fish, and since we're only doing a top 10 and not 11, we went ahead and combined them. Platies and mollies are great community fish because I've never known them to be very aggressive towards other fish. They're super easy to keep and they're available in tons of varieties. You can find them in multiple different colors and fin types, and they'll mix well with just about anything. Platies and mollies are live bears, which means they give birth to free swimming fry. And the cool thing about that is they'll do this with minimal effort from the fish keeper. If you put them in your tank with good clean water and some hiding places so the fry don't get picked off by the other fish in the tank, you'll have a tank full of these fish. That could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the fish keeper. But you gotta admit, it's always fun finding babies swimming around in the tank.
If you've watched any of our videos, you knew that there was no way I was going to leave angelfish off this list. I realize they're cichlids, and that makes a lot of people think that they're mean, but the truth is, they're really not. Sure, they can get a bit nasty, especially if the male and female pair off and want to breed, but if there's no breeding going on, they pretty much get along with anything. Angels are no doubt one of the most majestic fish in the hobby. Their slow movement and long flowing fins make them appealing in almost any tank. These are some of the larger fish on the list, so keep that in mind. You'll want to put them in at least a 29-gallon tank, but if you want my honest opinion, I don't think they should be in anything smaller than a 55-gallon. That's very different from almost all of the other fish on this list that can be kept in much smaller tanks. Angels come in several different varieties and colors and won't really bother any of the other fish in the tank. Again, unless they're breeding. But one of the things you should really think about is the fish that you're putting in with them. Stay away from fish that have the reputation of being fin nippers. I know community fish are supposed to be peaceful, but those long fins can sometimes get mistaken by other fish as something else. Get a group of 5 or 6 angels and have them be the focal point of your tank and surround them with a few other types of smaller community fish. And that'll make an amazing tank to look at.
What really needs to be said about guppies other than they are awesome? Guppies have been in the hobby forever, and it's totally understandable why. They're super easy to keep. They're all over the place, and they come in some colors and fin types that will absolutely blow your mind. You don't need a huge tank or fancy lights for these fish to be happy and to thrive. And you'll have so much to look at whenever you go by the tank because there's going to be hundreds of guppies in there before you know it. These fish are super active and they'll really never cause any problems with any other fish. Just like I talked about with mollies and platies, guppies are live bearers and they are the easiest fish to breed. We should do a 10 Things episode about the easiest fish to breed. Sounds like a good idea to me. What do you think? Let us know in the comments section.
Tetras are another staple fish in the hobby. They're everywhere, they're super easy to keep, and they come in tons of different varieties. Some of my personal favorites are the neon and cardinal tetras, serpe, bloodfin, and glow light tetras, but my absolute favorites are rummy nose tetras. There's so many varieties of tetras available that you can have a tank full of one of each of them and all of them will look totally different. Some tetras do prefer to be in schools though, and their behavior in a school is amazing to watch, so be sure to check into that before you go buying one of each. You don't need to be an expert fish keeper to keep tetras, so it's another fish that is perfect for beginner fish keepers. With all the different varieties of tetras, I definitely encourage you to research each individual type that you're interested in and make sure you're putting them in the appropriate size tank. And again, see if they're going to be okay if you're buying individuals or if you need to buy a school of them. You can fill up a tank with like 20 different types of tetras and spend like 40 bucks. You gotta love it.
Rasbors are one of those fish that'll go well in any community fish tank. They're available in tons of varieties and they're relatively easy to keep like so many others on this list. A lot of rasbors are a perfect nano fish because they'll stay really small, but there are some that'll get a couple inches in size, so do your research before you put them in a 5-gallon or smaller tank. Rasbors are substrate egg scattering fish, so unless you have thick plants or carpets on the bottom of your tank, you can expect the other fish to come along and eat the eggs. Just because they're labeled as community fish doesn't mean they won't eat the eggs. My personal favorite rasbor is the harlequin. Definitely. I've got somewhere around 30 harlequins in several different tanks and I can't get enough of them. I can honestly say these are some of the most indestructible fish in the hobby and they're absolutely gorgeous. And even though their name sounds just like Harley Quinn, don't worry, they won't wreak havoc in your tank.
We're bad guys, it's what we do.
If you ask someone that's new to fish keeping to describe what a catfish is, they're going to tell you one of two things. One would be when a guy goes on social media and describes himself as a 6'4" athletic gym rat that often gets mistaken for Brad Pitt, and you show up and you meet him and he's a shorter, overweight Fred Durst wannabe. The other way people would describe catfish is these huge, sloppy, big mouth gluttons that hang out at the bottom of rivers and lakes. But what you may not know is that there's some tiny catfish in the aquarium hobby. They're absolutely adorable. Corydoras are extremely popular in the aquarium hobby and for good reason. They're really small, so you don't have to have a huge tank. Plus, they're really active, constantly scavenging around looking for something to munch on. You'll rarely see cory cats sitting in one spot and not moving. And if you do, it's usually only for a second or two and then they're off scavenging again. So many people are looking for bottom dwellers that'll patrol the substrate and help keep things from collecting on the bottom. Cory cats are the perfect answer. Look them up though before you buy them. Some cory cats do better in groups, and you won't want to just buy one. They'll get lonely.
Barbs are another super cool fish that comes in tons of varieties. From long and slender fish to shorter, stubbier ones, you can pretty much find a barb for any situation. Barbs are a super easy fish to keep and most of them won't cause any trouble in your tank, but I just want to warn you. Some of them have a reputation. Take tiger barbs, for example. These are some really striking fish with a lot of personality, but people will tell you they're nasty little fish. I haven't had this problem with tiger barbs, but they do have a reputation for picking on other fish's fins. But then you have the barbs like the Denison barbs that doesn't have the reputation at all. They're known to pretty much leave all of the other fish alone. The point is to do some investigating into the barbs you're thinking of getting before you go to the fish store and buy them. Make sure they're compatible with the fish you already have. If you're interested in getting a little more detail into a lot of these fish on the list, I'll put a link in the corner to some of the other 10 Things episodes we've done on fish that are good for 5, 10, and 20-gallon tanks. You'll find plenty of barbs on there.
What can you say about bristlenose plecos? I mean, they're just cool. This is another fish in the catfish family that stays really small. Most of them are only going to get 4 or 5 inches max, so they'll go well in smaller tanks. Don't get carried away though. Don't be putting a bristlenose pleco in a 3-gallon tank. How dare you? These little catfish are definitely the most unique fish on this list. They look like little dinosaurs from another planet. But the cool thing about them is they're super friendly to the other fish in the tank. They're really easy to keep, and they'll help you keep the bottom of your tank nice and tidy. Bristlenose plecos aren't the most active fish in the world. They'll do most of their work when you're not looking, but they're super cool, really unique, and you can get them in every color and pattern imaginable. A smaller community tank without a bristlenose pleco just seems incomplete.
tails are very similar to mollies and platies in the way they're shaped, with one big difference. The sword on their tail. Well, only the males have the sword. This is another super cool live bearer that pretty much gets along with any other fish. And they're super active, so there'll never be a dull moment with them. With them being live bearers and pretty much constantly having babies, you do need to take some precautions to keep them from getting out of control. Well, unless you want a tank full of them. It happens pretty fast. Trust me. The best way to prevent them from breeding is to just buy males or just buy females. Most people will go the route of only males because they're the ones with the swords on their tails. But a tank with a bunch of females, it's a pretty cool tank too. Don't neglect the ladies.
Danios are spazzes. I mean, seriously, they should be called spaz fish. You're not gonna find a more active fish in the aquarium hobby. I'm serious. Try to find one. I bet you won't. If you have a fish that you think is more active than Danios, put it down in the comments section below. Anyway, Danios are really the perfect aquarium fish. They're awesome looking little things, they're crazy active, and they're practically bulletproof. When someone asks me, I want to get a tank for our child, what's the best beginner fish? I'll almost always tell them guppies or Danios. The last thing we want is for a kid to start off in this hobby with a boring fish that's super delicate. We want to start them with a fish that's all over the place and can tolerate the growing pains a new fish keeper goes through. The young kid has such a good time watching these little spazzes that he falls in love with the hobby and enjoys it for years. Let's keep fish keepers fish keeping. I love that.